Welcome to week's session on computer science. I've named it Fall 25 because this is our second time doing this sort of session. Yeah, but I will say the last time we did a computer science section was this past January 2025. So it has been a hot minute. So really excited to walk you all through some of the updates today, and we also have some exciting shareouts today, which I'll touch on right now. So as always, I'll start off with the icebreaking news, sharing some news that I think is worth discussing with this specific group. And then we'll go ahead and do the educator share out because some of the teachers that I asked need to leave early. So I figured we could do that during the first part. And then I'll walk you through how to use chats and activities in Flint for teaching and learning computer science. And then the final part here is actually we have some student shareouts today, which is very exciting. So yeah, very excited to hear both the teacher and the student perspective. And as always, the recording will be available later. Questions are welcome at any time. Feel free to just like raise your hand, unmute, or even throw something in the chat. And yeah, with that, I'll start with the icebreaking news. So this article that I found is actually from August of this year, so it's been a couple months, but I thought it was very interesting to look at with this group. Specifically, Fastly, this research company, did a survey of, I think, almost 800 professional developers, both from like more junior level developers and also more senior level developers, to see some trends in how they're using AI in their workflow. And I thought the interesting thing was like senior developers were shipping 2.5 times more AI generated code than junior ones. And yeah, here's kind of like the breakdown of that statistic. And I think, I don't know, it was kind of surprising because people kind of, oh, the younger people in the professions are using the new tools. They're like developing the new workflows, but actually it's the opposite in the computer science world, it seems. And one of the reasons that the article suggested from the interviews that they did was that this gap might be as a result of senior developers being better equipped to catch AI mistakes. And then with that, they feel more confident in being able to use whatever the AI is outputting. They feel like they can check it adequately. So I think that means, that part of education for computer science is not only how can like these students use these AI tools, but also how can we teach them to use them correctly and also teach them confidence in using them, and how they can generate things that work and will continue to help them throughout their careers. And in this next slide also, another piece of this article that I thought was interesting was that, a lot of the developers, almost a third of them, were saying that they frequently have to fix or edit the code, and it actually offsets most of the time savings. But they all still felt that AI helped them be faster, even though if you look at the numbers, like it wasn't necessarily true. Sometimes it took them longer to develop something with AI helping them. But the fact of like how like they were interacting with AI, how like quickly the AI outputs, it still made the experience to them feel faster. And a lot of them, as you can see on this, albeit small table over here, either said that using AI in their work made it somewhat more enjoyable or significantly more enjoyable. So yeah, I think it seems to be the growing norm of developers using AI in their work. And with all of the computer science teachers here, I'm sure you're getting more and more questions from your students on how they can start doing this and what ways they can implement it in a good way. Yeah, and with that being said, I'd love to invite some of the educators that I singled out today to share their experiences using Flint in their classrooms. The first of which was Spencer Wagner from Regis Jesuit. Feel free to go ahead and start sharing what you've been doing.
Yeah, can you hear me? I've been using Flint since, I guess, for the last 2 years. We started piloting it in January, about a year and a half ago. Um, and currently, I use it, I experiment with it across both math and computer science. And I teach all the AP computer science classes, including the new ones that were just added this year in AP networking and AP cybersecurity. And because these classes are newer, we have very small numbers, and so we have to actually run these classes simultaneously. So I teach both a CSA course and an AP networking course at the same time. And one of the things that Flint allows me to do is design self-discovery lessons that allow the students to kind of work at their own pace. So when one group is working, they have Flint, and then I can work with the other half of the class teaching their course, so to speak, and then swap back and forth. And what this has turned into is it's allowed for my coding group to kind of move at their own pace, because they constantly have a tutor available to teach them the next piece of the lesson. So I kind of designed the course to be an independent paced course that way, just because I was forced into that situation. But Flint has been great at doing that. Specifically, I was never trained on AP networking. It wasn't part of my collegiate degree, but to teach it this year, all I really need is the syllabus that the College Board gave, and then we have Cisco Packet Tracer, and that is a simulator for standard IT networking. Flint knows everything about Cisco Packet Tracer and knows every button and can help kids debug and problem solve. And so I create these lessons, and it guides them through this software that I wasn't trained in, but it's great to have an assistant who was, so to speak. And it has allowed that class to work very smoothly. So they work for an hour straight with just a Flint companion guide on these simulators every day, learning the tools, learning the software, and then I bring them back and we do notes together at the end, at the beginning, and we do little activities. But I only get, like I said, about half the class to work with them. So I really needed something that I could rely on for the other half of the course. And it's gone very, very well, in my opinion. Far better than it would have been with me trying to sit there and problem solve with these kids one-on-one, going through this simulator software, because there's so many different pieces to the software. This is highly technical, it's professional grade, and the kids are expected to use it as part of this course. So I've been very pleased with that. And then, of course, I use it for the companion teaching of other coding in the CSA course, for practice, for FRQs, for multiple choice reviews, for pretty much anything I can think of that the kids can work on independently on their own whenever I'm not working with them specifically. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like you'll have one of my students talking about her experience a little later, based on what I can see in the chat there. So that's been the experience with computer science. I know that as a whole, computer science is moving in the direction of auto coding, and Google just released anti-gravity this week, which again takes more of a back seat when it comes to the product development side. So with the kids, I very much try to get them a deep understanding of the basic elements of coding, and then from there, trying to use AI to create and craft is going to be that bridge that they have to connect to when they get to the real world. So I just try to get an experience with talking to it, being creative with it, and using it to generate ideas, and being a co-worker in that space, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. Yeah, do you feel like the student outcomes have changed at all since you've started using AI more in your classrooms?
It certainly has in my AP principles. I can look at the data, and we doubled the number of fives we got on the AP test. 7 years straight, I had the exact same numbers every year, and then I finally started using it for FRQ practice, for analysis of their coding projects, for giving them feedback, and the ability for them to handwrite, to express their learning with free response, and that's what was missing, the ability for them to talk intelligently about computer science. I could give them multiple choice questions all day long, but that doesn't necessarily depict learning and knowledge. And so the metrics there were doubling the number of fives at the top board, and again, I would say on average, the AP scores went up about 20%. But that was my most heavily used AI, and I really focused on trying to give them lots of tools and preparation materials, utilizing the Flint for that, and just having them have everybody having someone to talk to about their code and their projects I think raised their confidence level overall. The kids really got into it and talked about that experience to some of their other teachers of knowing how to enhance their learning with it. Because prior to that, I had the opposite experience when ChatGPT first came out, and all of the kids used it to just kind of replace their learning, and that's when scores dipped that year. And so it was really intentional use of AI the next year that produced the opposite result. And so I won't say that it's like, oh, bring AI into your class in the first year, your kids are going to suddenly do great. I don't think that's the case. But when you start to break down how it can enhance, meaning what gaps can it fill that you weren't able to fill before, I think that that's when it really adds value.
Thank you, Spencer. That's really amazing to hear. I'm super excited that Flint was able to do that for your students. Yeah, does anyone else have questions for Spencer? Cool. Yeah. If not, or if something comes up later, feel free to throw it in the chat. But for now, I'll turn it over to Craig, who is from the Shanghai Singapore International School. So thank you so much for joining us at such a late time for you. But yeah, Craig also wanted to share what he's been doing with his students.
You're most welcome. Can you hear me? Okay, great. I've got headset on. I don't know, it might be helpful for me to share my screen, but maybe before I do that, just some context. We have gone through a process of restructuring. I've moved from primary to senior. So this context, I think, is helpful to understand because we've had to structure our schooling, and in order to build the right way, we have reduced staff, which means I've taken on a whole load that I didn't have before. So while I taught computer science back in South Africa, like over a decade ago, I haven't taught computer science to the upper grades recently. I'm doing the IGs. And so now I'm teaching 7 and 8, writing the curriculum, DT grade 9 and 10, computer science grade 9 and 10. I have not taught DT before. Computer science and pseudocode, I haven't taught either Java before. So it's a lot of new subjects I'm building, and I'm also trying to model for my staff and model the best use case of using an LMS, because some of the teaching is still very much based in the textbooks, and I believe that the efficiency of an LMS. So why I say that is because it's absolutely impossible for me to do this if I have to hand do everything. And so I'm a very heavy AI, but very heavy productive AI. I have been banned and I'm regularly blocked and have to pause my use or switch my use because I overuse or break the systems. So I do test it to the boundaries. And I'm always thinking about, like, a lot of my purpose is when I'm in a classroom, my thought is I want to understand what my students are understanding, what they're learning, where the gaps are. And Spencer mentioned, that feedback loop. It's difficult you can give them multiple choice, but how do you know where they really are getting it and where they're not? And so I don't use like Flint all the time. I'm promoting and working towards recommending to certainly a certain level in the school, we prioritize only one platform just because of and Flint is the platform that I advocate for, simply because of the tools that allow us to flag in the use in that. So a couple of things that I have been doing. I started off with the having a tutor. So end of unit, give them a tutor, I upload the content, and then they can have a conversation with it. Now, the reason I love that is because they have the conversation, then I run the analytics, and I see where the gaps are, I see where the strengths are, and now I know where to support them, and I can analyze what my students understand. If I ask them questions, the quiet ones don't want to answer. I can give them tests, but it takes a lot of time to try and figure out where they're at. So if I design an activity in the right way, it allows me to get an understanding of what they do understand and what they don't. And also it also helps the students. Like, I've got one grade 10, she's new to computer science, she's new to the school, she's new to English, she's grown up in Korea, and now suddenly it's massive for her, it's really massive. And so I've been able to give her like a tutor for each component that speaks to her in Korean, so she can work on the concepts. And what I do is it will she will communicate in Korean. It will give her the answer in Korean and in English so that she gets to reinforce the English of it, and she can listen and hear it in both languages. So that's just, some of the supporting tools just to try and, the whole BML, especially in Shanghai with an international school. We've got kids from all over the world, a lot of Korean, from India, a lot of Chinese that now writing in English first language, but their core language is Chinese. And so while in English you want them to be talking English, we still want them to pick up the concepts. And we've also had a look, I looked with the HOD of Chinese, in the Chinese schools where they teach in Chinese to Chinese students, and then the Chinese students write in English, they actually score way higher because they're able to develop the concept knowledge in their language of mastery. So we've actually gone through a shift where we are now trying to prioritize allowing students to work in their language of mastery while still doing the English. And obviously, if you need a teacher who can speak both languages, becomes difficult. But when you've got tools like these where we can start to blend it in, it's really helpful. But I've gone beyond just that. So one of the things that I started doing is I started to run simulations. So I enjoy Sims. I enjoy playing Sims, and I always have. And I remember back in the day, a couple of decade or so ago, I had a simple sim where it was a business tool. And actually, I've spoken to the business teachers. They're quite excited. I haven't got them onto it yet. But it's basically you decide on, it's a product, the class plays the product. Each group is selling. So they decide how many they will produce, how much they'll spend on marketing, how much they'll sell it for. And then build an algorithm, put all the information in, and the algorithm determines how many each person has sold and now money back, etc. So I applied this to the software development lifecycle, where I developed an algorithm with checkpoints aligning with IG so that they had an adaptive, variable, real-world experience of going through the software lifecycle. And so it was a refining process, and if I build it again, I will build it more intelligently, because now it brings in way more than just the software lifecycle. It brings in having to manage different people and different people with different priorities. It was one of the first time I ran it, it was very open-ended, and they couldn't go past negotiating budgets. They just got stuck there trying to negotiate budgets. So I had to scale it back. But what they found is they had to now learn that a security specialist that's all they're thinking about. And someone who's focused on UI, that's all they're focused on. And so them having to understand and manage these different components, and then also weigh up what is important, what is not, and work towards timelines, and go through that process where they could make the decisions. It made it much more practical. So I actually ran that as the first segment of what I did, and then we did the theory of it. And because they had that background where they had made decisions, they had spoken about it, and then they started to apply the theory to it. This was with my grade 9 class. The grade 10 I hadn't taught before, but I did a review of the grade 10s. My grade 9s were scoring they had far more technical knowledge, because now the technical knowledge they applied to the practical experience, and they understood the cycle so much better than my grade 10s who had last year just gone through it in theory. So I found that now I'm continually thinking about different simulation options that I can run with them. Another one that I did I've run a component on prompt engineering with my grade 7s and 8s, a unit, and I only see them once a week. So it's not a lot of time to work with it. But I've coached them through a process of prompt engineering, and a lesson that I absolutely love, and I think I actually developed it with AI, and I recommend a fantastic way to help kids understand how to prompt. I had them as prompters. So one of them was an AI, and the other one was a prompt engineer. And I gave them a picture. So I would take the prompt engineers, I showed them a picture of a house, and I made them sit away from the other ones, and they had to tell the AI person how to draw the house. They gave them a set of instructions, and then they drew. And then the person would show them what they drew, and then they would give them feedback, and they would go and draw again. So they went through the cycle of iteratively changing. And that whole process got them to, then we had the discussion about, well, why did it work? Why didn't it work? I showed them the image. And then after that, they got the opportunity to try and get Flint to create the house now. And just that process of feeling the frustration, especially from the AI, like, but he didn't tell me how to draw it. He was just, so, and then I could relate that. Well, yes, when you're talking to AI, it's not going to know these things. So this is a way to communicate. So I found that quite a helpful experience. And I've obviously, walked them through the ethics. I think that's important because there is the trend, especially I have aggressively pushed use of AI at our school, mainly because, in the past, a lot of technologies at schools have been too scared to let them in. Students have built bad habits, and then it's difficult to break the bad habits. So I've been aggressive at pushing it in so that we can train good habits immediately so that they don't pick up the bad habits. So I did a fair amount in ethical use, talking about the pros and cons, the different conditions. But then we did not a simulation, but I gave them a project, come up with a house point system for the school. We have one, but come up with your own, be creative. So they went through the process of talking about it with the AI. So they had the concept discussion. And then just as a caveat towards the end, I said, okay, did you know that if you want to visualize the scores, you can get it to write the code? And within 10 minutes, I showed them how to write a prompt, and I had kids writing HTML code that was dynamic. And they were absolutely blown away. I can show you if I share screen that one of the grade 8s then went, and I showed them on Friday. This week she has created, for a project for science, an HTML website, and she came and asked me how to do this. I showed her how to use an image, use image mapping to map out different places where she can click, and then it will take her to content. The HTML page is one page that clicks, and it's dynamic, it moves, it hides different elements, and it's linked to this image. And she has learned about HTML very quickly in a short space of time and able to produce something that she's very excited about. So I don't know is it possible for me to share the screen? I could just show.
Yeah, it should be there's like the smiley face in the bottom, and then the one to the left of it with the arrow top.
Yes, found it. Okay, start broadcast. I'm not talking too much, am I? Not yet.
No, you're good.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna shift across to, okay. Oh no, that's the other one. I'll see if I can find, okay. No, this is not the link. I will.
Oh, Craig, we might have lost you. Oh no. Um, hmm. Okay, while hopefully Craig is coming back on, I did want to talk about the really exciting chat that's going on in the messages here. Dylan was asking Spencer, besides switching from ChatGPT to Flint, what mechanisms did he use to switch from the replaced learning mentioned to having better processes that he had described, like any incentives, guardrails, enforcement structures. And Spencer was saying he made sure all major coding assessments were done in class, created practice sets of all of the questions ahead of time, and encouraged students to use AI to prepare, which is a very popular use case for Flint also. Yeah, and knowing that they would have to answer without the AI, kind of, I'm assuming is like what encouraged the students to really like use AI to understand it rather than to just answer all of the questions. He also taught students how to make their own tutors with each assignment, and Flint allowed him to see what they were asking so he could double check that they weren't using it to just create everything, but were actually bouncing ideas and code back and forth with it. Yeah, and I think the student who will share later, Izzy, is like a testament to how Spencer was doing this with the students and encouraging them to build their own tools eventually. So I think that's really cool. And then Dylan was also asking how did checking through each student's chat logs impact overall grading time compared to pre-AI years. And yeah, Spencer says that he usually used the summary / overview feature, and then would roam the classroom seeking kids to interact with. So only jumped into individual logs when something fell off. Yeah, for those of you all new to Flint, I can show you all what that panel looks like, and we can talk through all of those pieces. Craig, are you back? Not sure.
There we go. I'm back.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
My mistake. Okay, there are two things I do want to show, because what I do is I actually do a lot of my grading through Flint. So I use it as a checkpoint. I build rubrics, and then I will get a grade. I will grade my kids, and then I will give the rubric and the grades to Flint, and I'll say, tell me why I should make it higher, and tell me why I should not make it higher. And then it gives me a balance based on the rubric. But when I'm running it through like that, it's obviously collecting all the data, and then I can also get it to help me build comments that are very granular, highly detailed, personalized to that kid's growth level. So I'll look at what have they done well, and what is the immediate next step to help them to develop. So I'm trying to give them actionable immediate steps. But because I'm doing that, I can then analyze the class's data very, very quickly, and I can get broader analysis. So I can actually ask for targeted information. I do want to, if you don't mind, show you the website, because I thought it was great. It's a grade 8 student. She's never ever done any HTML before, and she came up with she actually figured out how to load it up on a website. So this is her. I'll slowly load up. So she got the image. I showed her how to work with the image. She's got the quick reference points, but if you go and click on the mouse, it will then take her to an information page, and she can go back. And so this is from zero code to creating a dynamic HTML web page. Is really exciting for her. She was absolutely amazed and so excited that she couldn't believe that we were actually teaching her how to do it, which I think is really empowering. For me, that's the key. So we want to empower them to be very effective. The next one, so when I analyze, I often get Flint to create a document for me. And then the document is a report. So I call it a report. It will create a document, and the whole report will be in there. I then used I did this house points activity, and then I asked it to, okay, create a report. Now give me a website that I can dynamically go through. And so now I've got all the performance. I haven't, this was just the first attempt. So I didn't go and refine this report, but this was done in 5 minutes. I can show you the prompt in a sec if you want, but now it's talking about 59 students, what they performed, what they did well, what they didn't. So we've got my excellent level. It shows me detailed information, my competencies. I've got the range of competencies that I can go now and have a look into, understand the data. It tells me my strengths, what my kids are already doing well. So they were fairness-centered design, inclusive event design, transparent systems. This is all grade 8 students who have just done prompt engineering, and as a fun activity, got them to design a house point system without any back end of how to do software development. And as they were doing it over a period of 2 hours only, I was able to have conversations with them as they were having conversations with Flint and developing these systems. And then the gaps. So justification of reasoning. Now it gets into what's really going on. They're giving short answers. They need to expand on that. So it gives me a whole lot of ideas. And then also it gives me recommendations. So the next steps that I can take with it, which is a part of obviously the Flint tool. Each activity has, the follow-on activity. So it's quite nice. I find not, just to use it for activities, but actually to use it as an analytic tool as well. I think it's highly, highly effective. I can take you to, I can quickly find where I have so many tabs. I'm trying to remember which tab it is in. I think it's in it's literally, it's so simple to build. I think it might have been this one, perhaps, or not. I don't want to waste time. But yeah, it was literally one prompt, said, please create a report and do a website of the report. And then it created all of that immediately for me. And yeah, so I obviously have not got into too much detail. I'm slowly in the process of working with my students to, okay, I hope there we are, I'm turning myself on. I'm slowly getting to the point of working with my students to get them to create some activities. I've told them they can. I will get them there, but right now I'm modeling how to create an activity. For my students, a lot of them have been stuck in ChatGPT or other ones, and they default to that. They find it frustrating because this doesn't just give them the answer, or it's restrictive. And then I explain to them why, and I explain to them the process. So I'm training them how to use it, and then I will get to the point as soon as I have time. I've only been with them for a turn of actually creating their own activities and coming up with different ideas. For computer science, so in IG, they don't actually have to learn a coding language. It's not required. They learn pseudocode. And I actually went through, so I didn't know pseudocode, so I created a tutor for myself. And it's amazing how easily Flint can tutor me, take me step by step. I can reinforce and I can work through it. And so obviously I've then translated that across to my students to help them to create it. I give them debugging tasks where it'll give them code that's wrong and they have to find the answers and then debug it, tell it why it's wrong, get them to write code and pseudocode at the moment, but pseudocode, and then ask them. So then they ask Flint, how else could they have approached the solution? And what I found, which I didn't know before, because I haven't been, I've been primary school for a while. A lot of my teachers were complaining about pseudocode. And I've realized that the reason they do pseudocode is because it's about the framework of thinking, it's the algorithmic thinking. And I've actually identified with my grade 10s that a key missing part, our students, especially in coding, who are have an aptitude for coding. What that means is they naturally, without having to think about it, decompose a problem into an algorithm, and then they can just apply it to code. But the actual process of translating coding to the rest of us, or non-coders, is to actually teach them the process of decomposition, laying it out in a flowchart, and then doing basic pseudocode, which is the base of more natural language that can then be translated across into code. So that's where I really focus a lot of my time on at the moment. So they will create a flowchart, upload it, they get feedback on their work. I use it a lot for feedback. Do the work, upload it, get immediate feedback. My point for my students is I don't want them to have to wait. If they want to know what's wrong, they want to know right now. And that way they learn immediately how to fix it, and that helps to stimulate learning. So I haven't taught code yet. I will be, but some of my kids will want to know C++, some of them will want to know Python, some of them will want to know Java. Others be just I just want to do a little bit of HTML, and that'll be hard. But Flint allows me to create multiple tutors, structure them in key and really simply laid out ways that will allow them to learn in the language of their choice at the pace that they need, and I'll be able to get feedback of their progress. My Korean student, she's completely new to flowcharts, algorithms, and pseudocode, she's been working on it independently, and the growth has been quite substantial over the course of the month. I've seen her work go from not really being able to write a algorithm to writing a complete flowchart with good logic, with multiple if statements in it, and so I think they have the confidence. They start to get excited. They have been amazingly appreciative, especially those that are struggling. They really find this as a supportive tool. They might be a bit embarrassed to ask in class, especially because my Korean student, there are 3 students who are getting 49 out of 50 for their tests. So they are high achievers, and she now is new to the subject. So the fact that she's got this space that is safe, I can work with her, I can build little tools that help her, is so empowering, and it reduces any possibility that she might be embarrassed. I hope that wasn't too much of an overshare.
No, thank you, Craig. I think you shared so many different awesome applications. I think in the chat people have some questions about like how you actually went about getting the students to build these things. In the interest of time, maybe if you could send that to me like via email, and then I can include it in the post session email for everyone, that might be great. Or if we have time at the end, of course, we can share live. But yeah, thank you so much, Craig. For now, I'm gonna go ahead and move into the next section, just so we also have enough time for our students to share. This is the demo part. of how to do all of this in Flint. I'm going to start off with a disclaimer of I have taken like one coding class in my life. And so when I was putting this together, I was actually using Flint to help me a lot. But hopefully, at least I can demonstrate like some of the features that can be helpful to you all and like what that process looks like. But I'm sure like, please be nice if I said something wrong in the prompting. I will let you all use your own computer science knowledge there. But yeah, so since January, when we last had one of these sessions, here are some of the like big updates that I think impact the computer science teachers most. We've updated the base LLM to now be Claude Sonnet 4.5, which has a lot better reasoning capabilities, and like we saw it was better at like both following directions, so it wasn't writing as much information, like it wasn't giving answers to students as easily. It was able to like take things more step by step. Yeah, and the second one is a more recent one. You can actually adjust the length of Sparky's responses. I know with working with younger students, like this has been something that teachers have been struggling with. But now you can just tell Sparky like, hey, be more concise, and Sparky will stick to that a lot easier. We also have Google Drive and OneDrive integration, so you can like easily connect your teaching materials into activities in Flint. And these needs attention alerts, which I'll show you in the product later. But I think when Spencer was talking about how he like roams around the room, we saw that a lot of teachers were doing this, and it's kind of hard to like look over a student's shoulder and like read the conversation that they've been having. So what we've done is like brought these out for teachers to see. So whenever like students are like not engaging or struggling, or even if they're being rude to Sparky and Sparky just like is sad because they're being bullied, these will be brought to the forefront for teachers to see, and I can show you where that is in a little bit. But yeah, a couple things to keep in mind also. Yeah, students can input code. I think by now, hopefully that's obvious based on what people have been sharing. But yeah, just make sure that they set the right language as they're using the coding tool in Flint. It still would probably understand it, but if you make sure that the right language is set, then like all of the highlighting and like the visual aspects of the code at least will look better. And then I think this might actually answer Jeff's question in the chat, but Flint can't run the code yet, but it can evaluate it for bugs and efficiency and like feasibility. Yeah, we don't have like a built-in sandbox environment yet, but definitely something our team wants to look into in the future, but just like a limitation to keep in mind right now. And then, yeah, and of course, like Sparky can also be the one generating code snippets for students to evaluate. You know, your students can put a code, Sparky can also generate code. It can definitely be like a either or both kind of situation. So I wanted to show you all really quickly this one process of creating activities that I've seen has been kind of popular with some teachers recently, which is to actually use chats for brainstorming, because typically like teachers are using the chats a decent bit for, you know, like lesson planning, brainstorming of activities, rubric generation, what have you. And actually, really quickly, just to clarify that for anyone super new here, from the homepage, there are chats in Flint. This is kind of like you're interacting with a more safe, secure, and guardrailed ChatGPT. And then also, if you scroll down, this is where you can create the activities, which is what Craig and Spencer have been talking about, where the students are interacting with the bots that you've designed. But what I've done in this example actually is I went and started a chat, and I asked it to help me brainstorm some activities for my AP Computer Science students to practice sorting and searching algorithms. So it gave me a lot of different options, from interactive ones to real-world applications, comparative analysis, creative extensions. And then I was like, oh wait, actually, can you generate data sets for these things? And it said, yeah, of course. And it can make like, for the activities it mentioned, it gave me some examples of what that could look like. So then I actually said like, oh, okay, the playlist organizer looks interesting. Can you generate the data for that? And it actually was able to do this in Python, and it like created this whole list of playlist items with titles, the artist names, duration, genre, and release year. And yeah, like this would definitely be something that students could use as they're practicing the sorting and searching algorithms. So, and then this is like the key part, I guess, that I wanted to share today is in the chats, Flint's actually very aware of what activity settings look like as well. So here I just asked it, I want to do this as a Flint activity. Can you write the settings for an activity like this into a document? So it gave me this, which has, you know, all of the typical Flint activity settings that you would need. Okay. Like the activity overview, settings, the greeting message, and then additional information like duration, deadline, grading scale, whatnot. Yeah, and it was able to create that and even give me the instructions for how to make activities here. So what I did from here was I downloaded the the database file, and then I also downloaded the activity settings file, and then I took that into a new activity. So from the home page, I could click create custom activity, and then sorry, I'm switching around so much, but let me show you just in the interest of time what it actually looks like here. So yeah, I just uploaded both of those documents. So this is the instructions for the activity settings, the playlist data set, and then it immediately was able to create an activity that I could start trying out. So if you expand here, you can see how it like wrote up all of the settings for me. And like this is kind of the beauty of Flint. You don't have to be the one like very precisely writing prompts. Sparky will do that for you. But of course, if you want to teach your students prompt writing, or if you want to do prompt writing, you can do so in the build manually here. We have all of the different prompt sections here. But yeah, so typically from here, you can simulate the session on the right-hand side once it's created, and the simulation will map to the different grade levels that are set in your rubric, or you can try out the session manually. I typically encourage teachers to do both, simply because I think the simulation is a bit of an idealized look how students converse with AI and in activities in general. So you can definitely like play out the simulation, see what it looks like from like the AI's perspective and also the student's perspective, and it will like show you that back and forth. I think this one's taking a bit longer because it's also writing the code. Yeah, and then I would also try out it manually. And then from there, you can give Sparky more feedback on the activity on the left-hand side. So here I said like, oh, give students the option before you begin to pick a genre for what sort of music list that you want, that they want you to create for them. And then I also said, you know, once they finish all the requirements, help them generate an image for their playlist cover just for fun. Let them choose a color, theme, and contents. And then as I was playing around with it in the preview, actually, I saw like, oh, it would ask questions. It would ask like 4 or 5 questions every time to students, and that was pretty overwhelming. So I asked it to respond with just one question or one piece of feedback at a time. Yeah, and so this is kind of how it goes. Like for most teachers, you can go back and forth, continue to tweak the activity, and then whenever you have new feedback that you want to give Flint, you can share it in the chat here, or you can speak to it, and then just make sure you update your activity whenever that's done. Yeah. Any questions about activity creation? Cool. Okay. Nice. Yeah, and then some tips. All of you will get these slides after the session, by the way, but some tips for activity creation include, you know, making sure that you're previewing and iterating on your activities. Provide examples and content when you can. That way, Flint can gear more of what it's like drawing from rather than using all of its training data. It might not be teaching in the same way as you would, or be explaining things in the same way as you would. So that's really helpful. Simulate it, test it manually. And then also in the chat, you don't always have to be giving Sparky like commands in a way. You can also ask Sparky for suggestions. So sometimes I see teachers asking it like, okay, what else am I missing? Or like, what are other ideas for how I can make this more engaging? And Sparky can give you ideas there. Yeah, and then another thing is we do have a public library of activities. And I think I took a look, there's not like too many computer science examples in there. So if anyone here has activities that they've made and that they really like, I do recommend publishing to the library. But for, people who are getting started, or even if you have students who are like curious about what else can be done with Flint, you can direct them there, and from there, any of the activities that they come across are free to use and remix. And that can be found here in the bottom left of their sidebar. And from here, they can like look at any of the activities that have been created by teachers, students, and some of them are from our team. But Flint users all across the world. Okay, I know I kind of ran through that, but hopefully that gives us 10 minutes at least for Izzy to share some of what she's been doing with Flint. Izzy is actually a student of Spencer's, so this is really exciting to have both of their perspectives here. Take it away, Izzy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm Izzy, and I'm a computer science student. As Lulu mentioned, I'm in Wagner's AP Computer Science A class. So today I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I have used AI to help me throughout the class and throughout in my computer science journey, not as like replacing my learning, but on like my journey to learning code, which has been a fun one for me. So in our class, our teacher, Mr. Wagner, gives us Flint AI practice problems, but I've been working to go a little further than that and apply it a little bit more directly to my learning style and to the things that I'm struggling with in the subject specifically. So a few of the things I've done is one of the things I really, really struggle with is debugging. Like I can never find my errors, it seems like, and it's always like once I fix one, there's like a whole nother one. So one of the activities I've made with Flint specifically is I made a debugging dungeon game activity. So I can input my code, and it's shared to the other students in the class as well. So I can input my code and it gives me like levels of going through and fixing each and every error. And it's just kind of made debugging more fun and less like pounding my head into a wall. Then the second of my favorites of how I've used AI for my computer science is I often it's an area of growth for me with like taking the concepts that we're learning in class and applying them to the assignments and to the coding activities that I'm doing online and on my own for homework. So I made an activity that I can put in the instructions, and it can give me interpretations and steps and help me understand the assignment and how it applies to the things that we've been learning in class a little better. So that's also been helping me quite a bit. For computer science specifically, I think that AI can be really helpful in kind of helping students understand how to build in steps and after which steps to kind of test your code and start debugging then, so that at the end of the assignment, you're not looking at it and being like, wow, I feel like I messed everything up. So you can it makes it a little bit more efficient as well as like fun. Like I like to make my learning fun. That's my big thing. So that's one of my favorite things that Flint has helped me with. So, and again, that comes with like a lot of creativity. Additionally, I think AI has been super helpful for me in computer science because I don't have a whole lot of coding experience going into this class, and I feel like a little bit of the underdog sometimes. So it's a nice place to be able to ask my dumb questions, or the ones that I'm a little bit embarrassed to ask in class because I'm not quite sure where I'm going with it yet. And the same is true because computer science builds on itself so much, and every lesson builds on the last. like if I'm missing school for my sport or for sickness, it's been really helpful in catching me up and helping me so I don't get behind in the concept recognition, at least. Helping peers, so this all leads into being able to help my peers and other students, and I really like the idea of using AI and applying it to computer science being an ongoing conversation between teachers, students, teachers on how these tools can be applied to computer science specifically and to a lot of different educational areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzy. Yeah, I really like how actually I feel like the theme of all of our share outs today have been that one of the most valuable, I guess, assets in learning is really engagement and excitement around something. Like from the article that I shared, it's like, even if they're not saving time with using AI yet, they feel like it's more enjoyable. And like clearly with Izzy, like you've been able to make your learning a lot more fun. And the way that like Craig and Spencer were sharing, we're also like, it's making something as like robotic, for lack of a better term, as coding, making it like a super conversational sort of class and like allowing students to interact more, allowing teachers to interact more with students, and like really bringing out I guess, the metacognitive of how it is that people are learning how to code and how to build things. So yeah, thank you for sharing. That was very exciting. And I always love hearing what you're doing, Izzy. Yeah, cool. Anyone have questions for Izzy at this point? Awesome, all good. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just scrolling through the chat really quick. Yeah, Craig is saying that, yeah, Flint generated the HTML code from the examples that he was showing earlier. That's super cool. Awesome. Okay. Since we have about 5 minutes left, I'll go ahead and wrap up the session. Again, thank you everyone for joining today. We have 3 more sessions for the rest of the semester. I'm skipping next week due to American Thanksgiving, but the week after that, which I'll like post very soon, is all about understanding Flint analytics. And then after that, we'll have an arts and design session. And then finally, well, I like to say what we typically do, but really I've only been running these campfire sessions for a little over a year. But in December, we like to do like a Flint 2025 or whatever the year is wrapped. So we'll talk through all of the changes that Flint has gone through and also a little bit talking about what we're looking at next for Flint and like what we hope to build in the coming year. So yeah, those are all very exciting and hope you all can join for some of those. And as always, the recordings will be posted on our website at flintk12.com/webinars, but anyone who is here will get the recording directly in your inbox once that's available. And yeah, no need to go check it there. But if you want to see previous recordings, they're all listed there as well. And yes, these are the QR codes that I typically leave everyone off with. One of the new ones, if you haven't been to one of these sessions in a while, is the office hours. So Jacob, our head of customer success, has started hosting office hours on his calendar. They're Tuesday and Wednesday at those times, Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, they're just free time for you to come meet with him to get help with anything from like a very specific Flint test that you might want to be doing, or if you just need like a refresher and walkthrough on how things work in Flint. Yeah, he has graciously offered his time there. And we do have I guess now it's not so new, Instagram, where we've been posting like a bit more fun things, a bit more like teacher facing stuff. I know a lot of our social media is more administrator facing, so that one's a cool one to join. And then also we have the Flint community. This is where we're encouraging like a lot of the Flint educators and some of the students to join, and like it's like a great place to ask questions, to kind of crowdsource ideas and get feedback on anything that you're trying to build as well. Our team is pretty active in there, but really we want it to be a space for you all, by you all. So it's more of a forum than anything. But yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I know the structure was a little bit different today, so yeah, glad that everyone could join and that we had such fruitful conversations, and I'm excited to hopefully see you all in another one.